Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls Radio. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and it is February 22nd already. Here we are. Oh, my gosh. But we have to find out from PK what's coming up and what she has to share with the numbers tonight. So, PK, how you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fabulous. I'm sitting here in cold Arizona. 35 this morning. Excuse me. I think I was abducted and put into the wrong state.
Yeah, exactly. You were dumped here in the Berkshires. Oh, my goodness. I know.
Right now.
It's crazy. Totally crazy. Well, I don't know what to expect.
Well, taking a look at some of the numbers, and since Joe's been on his little trip talking to the rest of the world, I thought I'd take a quick look at his numbers. And the reason I did so is in his chart, he's void in the area that deals with, and it governs communication, words, health, sex, well-being, entitlement, narcissism. And he doesn't have anything there to back this up. So when we're looking at the voids that he has, we can't miss his struggling at times to put two sentences together. Worse, when he can't complete a thought without getting lost or frail in the attempt to get out the words. But loss of his words creates some major issues, making it difficult to watch. It certainly is a major issue, disturbing to see that our president is not able to represent the demands that he needs to talk about. And at this point in time, this is going to be true with him throughout his life, but particularly so at this time because he's in a period of time that he's supposed to be very dynamic and very on top of things, and it isn't happening, and it's not going to happen. It's very disturbing to see some of the issues that he's seeing, and being president representing the demands that we have to go through, that's the scary part, because his mental health, cognitive challenges are creating major concerns with his competency, and we see it's troubling as well as dangerous, not just for him, but for the United States as well. How could anyone be trusted with the nuclear codes and the things that are clearly he's in charge of? And how is he to deal with the world leaders when we don't know what the world he's thinking himself and actually dealing with, because nothing is coming across in a positive way. So it's really scary to see the United States that frail right now. So all we can do is say a prayer on his behalf for the rest of us, because if he doesn't get his head placed back on his shoulders with help, we'll pray that those that are around him keep him straight, but it's not happening. And that's where we're going to be in some deep trouble if it doesn't change.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have contacted us through this week about the things they're seeing happening in the world. A lot of it is due to the weak leadership. There's no leadership coming from that office, and they see him mainly as a puppet, not a leader. And nobody likes to think of our country being led or being misled that way. So it's very troubling for so many people, and I thank you all for reaching out to us. And I know that's why one of the reasons you and I, PK, talked about looking into his numbers and seeing where is he headed.
It's constant opposition and emotional turmoil, and we're stuck with it because he's close the president until something happens health-wise. There's some issues coming up that I'm not going to make a prediction on, but his desire for freedom and change is the way he's handling it is putting everybody else at risk. That's the bottom line. He opens his mouth and it doesn't come out in a positive way. Scary.
Right. And he becomes the butt of so many jokes because he can't seem to walk up the stairs to Air Force One or walk down the stairs. I mean, it's comical, but it isn't when you think of what that says to the rest of the world. And what does it say about him and his cognitive abilities? I mean, some people are saying that is in fact a sign of a further decline when people are having those types of motor issues repeatedly. So I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be, but certainly watching this has disturbed a large group of people for good reason. So looking at this and seeing that he didn't have the ability to communicate to begin with, and now it's just so much worse. What year is he in? Because then you talk about people having a personal year.
He's in a personal year with He's in a 4 personal year, and that deals with health and healing and getting things, the basics, getting a real strong base and foundation. But it does deal with health. And his ability to communicate in a chart, there's usually something there that gives us, an uplifting thing. But he has no ability to communicate in a way that will make us get out of this. He has low self-esteem. He's overly sensitive, so he kind of goes along with whatever the team wants to give him because he wants to be one of the guys, and that's one of the major problems. He deals well with changes, but he's constantly changing without building a foundation. That's where the problem's coming in. He does not have a strong foundation at all. That's where he's got problems. And he's been good at what he's done over the years because he's one of the boys, and they pass things back and forth, and he's always challenging people, and he's insulting others, and he's making it back and forth. His desire for freedom and change, I wish he would follow his own change instead of creating these changes that are hurting the rest of us.
Yeah, because it's creating chaos rather than orderly, substantive change that can be beneficial. What a shame. Yes. Well, there's plenty of people doing political commentary, and that's not what we're doing, everybody. What we are talking about is looking into it from a different angle. And, PK, you always have great insights, so thank you for taking a look. Yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah. And I also wanted to point out that the Endolight Band, I've been talking about this. We're going to have to get Dr. Weber back on the show, because Weber Medical, he is the head of it, he's the inventor, and he has come out with a new Spectra watch called the Endolight Band, which is 7 times more powerful. I hope to see mine by the beginning of next week, and I will be sharing with you my results. But I'm so thrilled that he invented yet another device he can use at home, no side effects, and it's something, it's affordable. It's not cheap, but it's affordable. So, anyways, you'll be able to get a discount also if you buy it with the Supernatural Girl's name. So, when you go to buy it, you can go to wwebermedical.com, and you can purchase it there. Just use the code Supernatural Girls. That's with a Z. You'll get $100 off. So, anyways, I highly recommend each and every one of Dr. Weber's devices. He's just a genius, and I know we enjoy him on the show. He was amazing because he talked it down to our level so we could all understand it. But
important.
Yes, for me too, and it was revolutionary. What he's doing is, allowing you to treat yourself in your own home. So you have to go running back and forth for treatment somewhere else, to physical therapy or the doctor or whatever. This is something you can use at your own convenience. It's just fantastic. So more information to come on that. But in the meantime, if you have questions, you can feel free to send me an email right from the website. I'll answer any questions you have. I have used the Spectra that he invented for about 5 years. So I have a lot of experiences to share with that. And I will be having the new experience with the Endolight Band as soon as I get it from Germany, and I will be talking to you all about that. So we have a very important show for you tonight. Now, as you know, PK and I were talking about getting a trauma expert on the show because stored trauma, we believe, is a big issue with many, many people. It's one of the things that prevents us from having a peaceful and good life, and it also prevents us from manifesting what we want in our lives, because none of these manifestation techniques are going to work if you have stored trauma. It's not going to stick. And we're going to get into all this with a trauma expert who has written a great book, and it's called Chakras and the Vagus Nerve. Now, here is the deal. Everybody's talking about the vagus nerve these days, but now we're going to talk to somebody, CJ Llewelyn, who is an expert in this. She's going to help us understand why all of this is important and how it works. Now, CJ is she has a master's in education. She's a licensed professional counselor in her own private practice. She works with clients struggling with trauma and addiction. She is a trained internal family systems therapist and certified in EMDR. She uses polyvagal theory as a foundation for her work. She's also a Reiki master and a curious observer of the human condition. That makes for a great package. So, CJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually thrilled to be here. We've been talking off air about this importance of clearing out trauma for spiritual purposes, and I'm so excited that you guys are both excited about this.
We are, because it is an important topic. And you're one of the few that has combined the vagus nerve issue with spirituality and chakras. So please tell us how you got into this whole thing with the vagus nerve. How did you get interested?
Well, it just sort of unfolded because my work initially was EMDR, trauma, really understanding the concepts of working trauma through the body, which is at this point, 30 years worth of research. And of course, I, as a Reiki master and an intuitive myself, I was seeing how the trauma was processing, not just through the vagus nerve. I'm trained in polyvagal theory, but I was seeing that, wow, these aspects that people are struggling with are also presenting in their chakras. I was just going along for years, just working like that until one day I was like, what are you doing? You got to put this on paper.
Definitely.
And it's, it's how I work with my clients. Some of them are not particularly attuned to chakras. Some of them learn about chakras through me, but regardless of whether or not we start educating them on chakras, they start presenting in certain areas, so I know how to work with them when I see the subjects, the aspects of themselves presenting through the chakras, which I also see, overlined with the vagus nerve.
So do you actually see the chakras so that when somebody comes to work with you, you're able to, with your inner vision, take a look and see which chakras are blocked and which are not connected properly?
I would love to tell you I see them all the time. I have had moments where I have seen them, but they have never seemed to be when I'm working with my clients. I actually share in the book an experience of one of my former professors. One night I just saw her throat chakra, and I saw it coming out of her throat and the energy going back in through her mouth. And I explained in the book how that suddenly made sense to me because it's all tied in with the vagus nerve, which is connected to our throat, our inner ear, our eyes. I'm like, that just makes sense. So, no, I intuitively kind of feel it, and a lot of my clients will just express, this issue of scary survival. It's hurting down here, and they'll put their hands on where the root chakra is.
Yeah.
Or the connection, the attachment, early attachment struggles that so many people have, because trauma didn't necessarily start when we were older. A lot of trauma was early childhood struggles with, unfortunately, many caretakers that we've had. So, the pain might present in the sacral chakra, which I call the emotional center, because that's where the connection to others is. That's the early attachment. So I kind of listen to them more than read them, because I'm kind of working on different levels when I'm working with a client. And so not necessarily focused on the chakras. I'm focused on the whole system as they present through the chakras.
I see. So the vagus nerve, now for those of us in the audience who haven't heard of it yet or don't know what it is, please explain it to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's where I'm going to geek out, because I'm actually get really excited about the vagus nerve. It changed my work as a therapist when I started studying polyvagal theory. And Stephen Porges just changed the world. This beautifully brilliant, understated man and his research changed the trauma world. So the vagus nerve is part of the central nervous system. And the best way for me to sum it up for a lot of people is that there's three branches of it. The front branch, it's bilateral. It's got both sides. It's got, just like our brain, it's got a right and a left side to the vagus nerve. So the ventral vagal aspects of it, which we see in the front, connect to the heart, the throat, as I was sharing, the ears, the eyes. The ventral vagal aspect of the vagus nerve is where we register safety. This is what we're gauging when we walk into the room and we're listening to people speak. We're watching their facial expressions. We're managing our whole sort of nomenclature of what's safe for us or not in somebody's expressions, because that's how we as mammals register safety, because that's how we find safety, it's connection with others. So the ventral vagal is what we try to engage every time we're trying to, anytime we're meditating, anytime we're doing deep breathing, anytime we're trying to calm ourselves, we're getting ourselves back into that ventral vagal safety through grounding in that part of our vagus nerve. Now, I call it the middle section. We have the sympathetic aspects of us. And sometimes we think we hate the sympathetic, aspects of our vagus nerve. They're the fight or flight aspects of us, right? Those are the aspects of our nervous system that are also gauging safety, but they may be trying to discern if the noise that they just heard behind them that was a loud bang was something scary or somebody dropped something. So we may go from a sense of safety and connection to our back straightens, we start listening differently because we're trying to gauge if we're safe or not. So it gets into more the fight or the flight aspects of us. And, of course, we can have all sorts of conversations about how our modern life really plucks that part of our nervous system. Just driving in traffic, while we might be perfectly safe, heavy traffic, we were both talking about that in Washington, D.C. and off air. That'll pluck the sympathetic nervous system, whether we're safe or not. So that is that middle aspect of it. And then the third aspect of the vagus nerve is our dorsal vagal. And think about the dorsal fin of a dolphin. It's our oldest aspect of our central nervous system, our vagus nerve, and that is what shuts us down. And all three of these, none of these is bad. All three of these are, there's sort of our electronic wiring to discern in our body how safe we are. Because just like you guys are both saying, we can't manifest. It's hard to meditate. It's hard to connect to those more spiritual aspects of us when our wiring, is misfiring. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but I kind of like that.
It's a good one.
Wiring is misfiring.
Yeah.
But part of that is being able to identify that. I just moved. I moved to a new house. Perfectly fine, very happy, great choice. And I noticed my sympathetic nervous system will just kind of thrum a little bit more because, stuff isn't in place. Where's my, computer? How am I going to set up my office? So I'm aware of that, but it's still uncomfortable because my sympathetic nervous system is just sort of listening a little differently. New place, new sounds. So the more we can attune to that aspect that we have in us, the easier we are able to sort of manage whether or not this is a neurobiological response or it's an actual emotion, because, we're complicated as humans.
Yes, exactly.
And we have
but I have a question.
Sometimes, go for it.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I do have a question because you've identified kind of a new area here, which I think is rarely addressed. It's so important.
Mm-hmm.
There's flight, but there's also paralysis. You talked about it as it's a shutting down. So there's actually 3 states, and they're not bad, like you said, but they can be very inhibitive. So you might find yourself, for example, coming up against the fight situation, people who just always have to get into it, or people who always have to just shut down and do nothing. They just feel paralyzed or run away.
Yes.
So those 3 are so important to understand which one you tend to go to. And then I hope you're going to tell us how to work with that so that we don't get stuck there.
Well, and first part, I love this. Part of working with it is first really identifying it, right? I was using that example of moving because I'm like, no, I'm fine, but my sympathetic nervous system is on overdrive. When you know that, you can then work with it. And you can do that through, I am huge on, because I guess I'm, have my roots are in EMDR, huge on bilateral stimulation, the tapping, the back and forth tapping. That engages, it also engages the brain in that bilateral stimulation that will calm our system and get us back into ventral vagal. Identifying the chakra aspects too, I think is really important. I'm really proud of my clients when they start saying, well, I'm starting to feel this in my solar plexus. People who've never heard that, prior to that before. Because, again, we can kind of identify through the dimensions, and I kind of break it down in the book as to how I see it with clients. And I, ask for the yogis who have been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years for my forgiveness for my own interpretations of this. But I'll break it down into, if you can identify the solar plexus is really burning, there's probably some aspects of fight or flight, but there's also aspects of, how am I identifying in the situation? Who am I in this situation? How am I being in the world right now? How am I being interpreted? What I should sort of throw in here is that I see the chakras, the 7 main chakras, as breaking down into essential chakras, which I see as more attachment work, that early childhood trauma processing. And I always encourage people to find a good trauma therapist. Anyway, the trauma of the early childhood aspects of us really seem to identify deeply in the root and the sacral and the solar plexus. When we start getting into the heart, the throat, the third eye, we start engaging in the ventral vagal aspects of our central nervous system, which are also very much attached to the ventral vagal aspect of the vagus nerve is attached to the heart, the throat, the third eye. So we can start getting, working through calming there. But if we're all stimulated down in the root because we're not feeling safe, it's really hard to engage in ventral vagal, i.e. heart, throat, third eye, and even crown chakra energy, isn't it? I'm sure we've all had that experience.
Is that where a lot of the anxiety comes from for people? Because now that's like a big pandemic in and of itself. So many people say they have anxiety. And is that coming from fear and a lack of safety in the root chakra? Is that what it's connected to?
It's because we have had a major pandemic as well. It comes from that feeling of uncertainty. We may register a feeling of uncertainty and safety in a situation where we may not be, but our central nervous system may be registering and holding on to, because this is what the vagus nerve does. It's it's holding on to old memories to help program, again, the safety. Hope I'm not going too far off on a tangent here. So
no,
what happens
around
anxiety, and what happens around anxiety is the interpretation of what's occurring. And we start registering and holding on. Like I kind of use the self-driving car as an example, right? If it's programmed well, it's gonna slow down when the car in front of you slows down. It's going to register if it gets too, close to the curb. If we've had some experiences early on in life, we're going to misinterpret whether or not we're safe now, and so we might be over-registering whether or not we could be driving over the curb or registering a curb that isn't there. Again, because our system has been collecting data, is probably a great way to put that, throughout our lives. So, anxiety has multiple components to it, but it really does kind of come down to an uncertainty, a lack of safety, even when we are safe sometimes. And, everybody in this world over the last 3 years has had this constant thrumming, as what I was saying, sort of a background noise, whether we've been directly affected by this pandemic or not. We've had this constant thrumming of, are we safe? Are we safe? Are we next?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I was, because like I said, this is a big issue for many, many people. I'm always surprised at how many people are telling me they have an anxiety problem or disorder or whatever they want to call it, and they don't leave the house or they don't drive on the highway anymore or any number of things that tend to bring this on, and then they feel out of control and terrified. So this is big. And having somebody like you to work with who understands this from both sides, but the physical side with the vagus nerve connections and the chakras is, I think, extremely important. So you can get into it and try to free yourself. Now, what do you use for trauma release? Do you use EMDR? Is that your main method for that kind of thing?
My two favorites, in all seriousness, are EMDR, and I actually love internal family system therapy. I've become really passionate about it over the years as well, because those are those aspects of personality. You talk about us being complicated beings, who we are in the world, the parts of us, those personality aspects of us that are have been helping to try to manage the system since we were kids. Some of those children have or still feel they have a major job to do, because I see them also within the vagus nerve, and I see them, within the chakras as well. I hope that doesn't take us too far off track here, but the body-mind work, the body-mind work to me is, I've literally seen people's trauma release over time. I'm a big energy. Obviously, I wouldn't write a book like this if I wasn't. I'm a big energy proponent of etheric energy. However, I feel that working the etheric energy, working outside in this regard, isn't as efficacious. It just doesn't release the central nervous system and help reinstate a balance in the central nervous system so that our wiring can start accurately assessing again.
Because a lot of this
in the brain making meaning. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a lot of this trauma is pre-verbal, and it's very tough.
Yes. I love the fact that you know this.
Yeah, I do, and so I know that it's really hard to access what caused it and then release it. However, as we were talking off air about these things, there's a number of body therapies like the Rosen work, and there's many others that help to release it right from a body level, and at that point you may never know what it was about or care, but it's gone. And that's a wonderful thing. Like, I remember for myself many years ago, I can say many years ago because I'm old, so anyway, way back then.
We won't
Way
do
back
numbers
then.
now, PK. We will not be doing numbers on this one.
I've already had her number.
You got her numbers. That's right. You got her number.
Right. But anyways, one of the things I struggled with as a young adult is when I was the only person in the house and night would come, I would be terrified for no goddamn reason. I mean, there was no reason why I should have been afraid. I lived in safe neighborhoods. I had alarms on my houses. I mean, it was like I had dogs. There was no reason for this. So anyways, I contacted Linda Napier, who was a fabulous Rosen worker, and she did one session. And what it was with Rosen work is they just basically identify where in your body you may be holding this, and they put their hands there, and they hold their hands there. And after that one session, I never had it happen again. Never.
Wow.
So,
were you able to access the memory and make some meaning of it? Okay.
No, it never. It didn't.
Implicit
surface.
Experience you had. Yeah.
It was just something that had been stored there, and nothing came up as she was doing the work. Just holding her hand on. I think it was like my left rib cage or something. And anyways, at that point, I was so happy. I didn't care what it was.
Yeah.
It was that finally I was free of that type of really unreasonable, fear, because it didn't make any sense in the moment. I was safe in the moment, but I couldn't shake it. And then Linda came along and helped me in one session. So, and I know other people who had the same kind of experience, but now there's other things like tapping, and there's EMDR, and as you mentioned, this one that I'm not familiar with that I want to hear more about, but that you can release it. And really, especially when it's a pre-verbal thing, you need all the help you can get to get that out, because your body will hold on to that forever.
Well, and it's so important to remember or know that, our explicit memories, those chronological, this happened and this date, and I remember this was said, those memories don't even come online till we're about 3. So, there's a lot of life that happens between the time we're born and up until, our 3rd year. And it may be that babies know what's going on. They just don't have the language for it, but they have the experience of it. And that is held in their bodies. And think about it this way. I mean, we can't take care of ourselves that young. We are completely, utterly reliant on our caretakers. And if our caretakers are chaotic, even if we perceive we've been forgotten in the crib for a couple of hours, that starts developing memories in the central nervous system. It starts developing memories in our body. So yes, and I'm also, by the way, we didn't even get into this, but I'm level 2 trained on energy psychology, which is tapping as well.
Oh, great!
And
so you do
I do
EFT?
A lot of grounding work. Yeah, I do, and I find it really helpful for my clients that have really, complex trauma, childhood, traumas that I first need to help ground and establish a sense of safety within them before we even process the trauma. So EFT for me has been, talk about anxiety, calming. I find EFT to be one of those that really helps with anxiety as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We are complex, as you mentioned, but I'm so grateful to you and all the therapists that have devoted their work to this, because finally people can get some relief and they don't have to be medicated.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, what happens is if people have a high enough anxiety and they don't understand that it's a root of something, they start managing the anxiety, right? It's like not determining where the cold is coming from, but managing the symptoms of the cold. And that creates all sorts of, issues with OCD. You're trying to manage the effects and not turning inward to the aspects that are creating this
Can you
anxiety.
give some examples, CJ, of patients you've worked with? Obviously, don't share their names, but people who you helped get to the bottom of their trauma and release it, so they were no longer under the spell of these old memories and old painful situations.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort of find a compilation in my head so I'm not creating any HIPAA issues here. So the first thing that's coming to my head as far as sharing that is that it's usually never just a simple process. So in other words, we walk around with trauma in our bodies for years and don't know it. So there's layers to it. And I always tell my clients, just be patient with this. What I will do with clients now, I've worked a lot with survivors of childhood sexual abuse, particularly women. A lot of times they have implicit. They don't even have explicit memories. And of course, we're not going to go in there and try to form memories that they don't have. We're going to work with what's in their bodies. So some of it is one of the reasons I think people walk around with a lot of trauma is because they try to do other things to dance around the pain. But the real work is bringing the soft spots into the room. It's bringing the vulnerability. But you have to trust your therapist enough to be able to do that. So it takes a while to develop strategies with my clients for them to understand sometimes their own history, for them to develop a language around trauma, period, just trauma, forget any of the modalities you work with them with, so that they can start understanding how they manage their trauma unknowingly, like hitting dorsal vagal shutdown and dissociating, and what those various ways of doing that look like. That's how I started working with people in recovery, because a lot of people end up drinking and drugging because they have such high levels of trauma stored in the body. So giving you general terms, working with clients like that, I first help them develop a dialogue. I help them develop a sense of trust about the process, because you're not going to if you've been betrayed on whatever levels, especially early on, you're not going to go in there and just put this out on the table. So the work evolves over time, and those are the first aspects of it, is developing that trust and empowering them with understanding what's happening to begin with. Then I get them into tapping. Sometimes the tapping is what helps them when they are alone and they're having maybe even they're now identifying dissociative issues. Oh, look, this happened, and now I'm really not present to my body, and this is how I dissociate. So we might work on some tapping techniques or some grounding techniques that way. Over time, then, we start developing, if I was going in a direction with EMDR, we start developing what the plan's going to be with EMDR. Without getting too much into the discussion of EMDR in specific, we might develop what the targets are going to be. We're going to start with some very basic targets, maybe not even go into the big ones. It depends on what the trauma is,
But
it could be the trauma of having your mother yell at you for the first 10 years.
Yeah, because what we're looking for are some stories. It's like, Janie had this, and she came to see me, and we did this work and unearthed that, and then she was free of it. Because it's like so much of this trauma sets up a hamster wheel, and they can't get off of it. They may not even know they're on it. They just know they feel crappy. But are there any personal stories so that our audience can possibly relate to that rather than just an overview? Okay. Because they're looking, they're getting some, can tell us some stories.
Okay. I know I have to be careful because I don't want to betray anybody's privacy.
They're not going to know.
Okay. So I don't know. Let's make up a name. Patricia.
Yeah, there you go.
I can't go wrong with that one, right?
Right.
That'll work.
Patricia walks into my office, and by the way, I do have these examples of books. Walks into my office and can't sleep at night and does not want to have sex with her husband and just continues to have these vague memories in her head and they're getting stronger. And now that she's in recovery, right, because she's been to treatment, now that she no longer has a coping strategy to cover up these, what I utilize, terminology for flashbacks and letting Patricia know, she has to find coping strategies, and she has to now figure out why she was numbing this to begin with. So Patricia and I, keeping this vague, start identifying what the flashbacks maybe are. Start identifying the struggle she's having with sex with her husband, but maybe she wants to act out with some stranger down the street.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, that happens. It's all part of the strategy. Life becomes very chaotic when you're just trying to simply manage what you don't even know you're managing. So we break these down. We break these layers down. Again, trying to stay generalized.
Do you have people like this woman you're identifying by not identifying her? Do you have people like this woman have a spontaneous memory recall? Do they just spontaneously recall what's going on or what had happened in the past that they blocked out?
Yes, that can happen, and that's why you have to titrate with the work, because one of the things that might happen is, now that Patricia's no longer drugging her way through life, she's starting to get flashbacks, because the brain is also storing this information, right? The brain and the vagus nerve are communicating up and down with each other, and suddenly she continues to get a flashback of a molestation, right? Perhaps she walked outside and on the jogging trail past somebody with a familiar aftershave and has suddenly remembered that she was raped in middle school because her brain shut down and dissociated the memory because it was too traumatizing. So now, Pandora's box opens up where she has this particular memory, and now she's getting intrusive thoughts, she's getting flashbacks, and then she would come to me, which would maybe this would be a single trauma event. So we would work through processing that and processing it out. But first you have to stabilize it. You just don't go in and grab it because you could you could be re-traumatized.
Yeah, well, not only that, but let's say that somebody... Yeah, well, no, let's say somebody has a spontaneous memory of trauma, but they don't have any skills to manage their anxiety or other symptoms, then they're not with you. This spontaneous memory could happen anytime. It could happen anytime out of a session. So I can understand what you're saying, that it's really important to have the trust of the therapist, important to have some skills developed, so start to manage some of the symptoms, and then you're ready for possibly a spontaneous memory recall. So that makes a lot of sense. Now I understand your process a little bit more.
Yeah, because they come to you because this is already happening. They don't come to you and then as a result it's happening. If someone's going to a therapist, something's going on they're trying to figure out. And whether or not they have a clear idea of what it is, or it's a vague idea, or, an example of the aftershave kind of experience, or, something that registers, right, that implicit memory, because we do shut things down sometimes. We do, even before we're, even when we're at the point where we have explicit memory, we can shut things down because the event was too traumatizing, so we've dissociated. And now suddenly another event has happened that's brought this memory back, which is also part of the body's way of asking to be healed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And as you know, with just the work that you do and the subject matter of what you guys talk about every week, we as humans are still inclined toward healing.
Yes, and again,
I think
we feel
that's just an amazing thing.
That's very powerful, and now is when we're finally seeing some of these tools being offered, the tools that you use with your clients, the tools you teach your clients, and it's so much easier because a lot of this stuff can't be reached by talk therapy. And this type of body language, like tapping and EMDR and all of these other things are really, really helpful. And one of the things we were talking about off air, and I'm going to bring this up again because actually we do have a paranormal show. There are so many abductees, alien, ETs, I don't know if they're interdimensionals or extraterrestrials, and I don't think it matters. What matters is there are a lot of people who have been taken, and they remember bits and pieces or maybe just a fog, and they can't get the help they need. At the very best, what they're getting is a trained hypnotist to help them remember the rest of what happened. But that doesn't release the trauma. So I'm very interested in what you're doing right now and how that might be beneficial to people that have had these types of experiences. They are literally indigestible. And I would bet so many people that have these types of experiences or even other trauma have stomach issues because you can't digest this stuff. So it's a I just see a whole new field of therapy coming out to help people like this. So I see we have a question from somebody in our audience, so let me bring them on. Hang on one second. It's area code 843. I see a hand raised. Let's see who this is. Hi, you're live on the air. What's your name?
My name is Micah. I'm calling from Winyah Bay, South Carolina.
All right, Micah. Thank you for calling. You have a question for CJ?
Yes, I do. In your experience, now granted, my apologies, just this broadcast that I've been privy to tonight, I've met you. So with that being said, I can tell there's some deep experience there, and you have a very pleasant way of, speaking it. In your experience with paranormal, when you've had those probably private, and I understand if you can't say because of either a non-disclosure or just the respect of, but have you seen a non-believer meet their first poltergeist and have, I dare say, psychic abilities start formulating in them?
And is that a question for me?
Yes, it is.
Micah? Yeah, well, that is, I want to, before I answer that, I wanted to say, too, that adding to what Patricia was saying is when we have things that happen that are out of the so-called norm, sometimes we're embarrassed to even bring them up, right? Especially when they've been traumatizing. And now I'll share something with you. I grew up in a house that pretty much had some sort of vortex where I was seeing dead people when I was a kid. That's traumatizing, isn't it? So, Micah, what you were saying about just maybe not even thinking along those lines, and suddenly you're experiencing things that don't make sense, but you know that they are there. I think, in a situation like that, especially if they become traumatizing and there's fear around that suddenly, finding, I guess it's kind of hard sometimes. I mean, we're not all talking about chakras and the vagus nerve as trauma therapists, but perhaps finding a therapist that is really open to working with that would be very beneficial.
Okay.
Does that help you?
Whenever you said, yes, it did. And also when you mentioned your personal experience, vortex is not far off from how it very much, pretty much, I knew about all this stuff my whole life, but I was a diehard skeptic. My friends used to say I had Occam's razor tattooed behind my eyelids. I was very impartial of things. But when I started seeing things that I won't be descriptive of because they were an adult version of what happens. And that was the first thing that made it difficult to tell anyone. So also, what you were saying, and also the thing I get a cynical laugh from, I dare say, is the fact that I worked for a haunted restaurant that did ghost tours. And I'm like, there's no way no one is going to look at me, the guy that subs for the ghost tour guide when he's not there and does the tours quite frequently, that he is going through this. He's just trying to add some flavor to it. And I'm smart enough to shoot that down. And plus, I realized the value in kind of thinking some things out that I was strangely becoming a part of. But I will say this: I could write volumes on what occurred over a 2-year period on a daily basis to myself and my trusty pal, 100-pound Pitsky named Snuka. He endured it all with me as well, and also corroborated things I was seeing because of his reaction to it. I'll leave it on this. I was a Theta believer, and that was the impact. But the thing I'm thankful for is I was always impartial when I heard these amazing stories from people that had nothing to gain from, saying something like that, and in some cases, everything to lose. It was seeing that proper. I may not have seen it. I can't believe it 100%, but there's got to be something to it. And if it wasn't for that little shred of open-mindedness, I honestly don't think I would have survived to this point the way I did.
So do you feel like you've got some trauma that maybe a local trauma therapist would be able to help you through a little bit, or? And, again, I want to affirm that when we have
probably if that was something that was within it. But honestly, I've got a handful of people I reach out to, and what I'm saying with you that is kind of censored. With them, I'm unfettered. So I get that same effect. There's some people, and they are people that I've met, a lot of them online, that would say little things that was a description only I knew with my experience. It was just quite unique, almost like a fingerprint of not that you were in the same place, but wait a second. And then you fill in each other's sentences, and you've met someone through other means you would not have. But I'm sorry, I wanted to leave it at that. You were very kind enough to answer my question with that, and I greatly appreciate that. I would think about somewhere in the future, if that was something these three, God bless them, have endured with me, and I've helped them, just as equal. But it has its moments still. There is weakness. I try and be, but what I was getting to real quick is when chakras, I knew of them, never really studied intently, but I had an experience where I was being communicated to emotionally. The same thing after you say a sentence and you completely comprehend what someone says, except the snap of a moment, and you basically analyze the emotion to get that same result. You know the same thing without hearing the sentence. It really put a basis down for, just keep an eye out. But also I knew that to be one of my most traumatic moments, because sometimes you never knew what you were going to see.
Yeah.
And,
no.
With a lot of other people, you've probably seen it too, because so far it to a degree it's been a constant with everyone I know.
One of the things
Micah,
that Patricia said earlier. Oh, sorry.
Let me just Patricia, bring it back to you, CJ. I'm just going to say goodbye to Micah here so that you can continue the conversation with us, CJ. So, Micah, thank you very much for your call. We appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. You have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Take care.
So, CJ, go ahead. You were going to be talking more about this. It's an interesting question.
Well, and you were talking earlier about implicit memory, and it's something that Mike brought up that made me sort of realize I hadn't really brought this up, is that what the chakras are implicit information. right? You know, we send and we receive information. I truly believe it's just an extension of our souls. And that information comes in implicitly. We feel it. And sometimes we know it. Sometimes it takes us a while to register that information. And they align with the vagus nerve. So that information is being sent out and received and processed through our nervous system.
So when something gets out of balance, stuck, whatever you want to call it, then it's also interfering with our spiritual connection, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And, you know, it's when we have this constant thrumming, it's hard for us to sit. It's hard for us to, you know, depending upon what the spiritual processing is, it's hard for us to really interpret without. Sometimes we get this wall if our trauma is activated in our system. It's like a wall, and it's hard for us to attune more to an etheric process.
Yeah, so it's a much bigger problem than I think many people realize, and that's, I guess, my point here, that not only does it interfere with your daily life, your ability to make good decisions, have good discernment, and connect freely with other people, there's also the same issue that happens on connection to the spiritual world. God, if you do religion, then religion. I mean, it's got to interfere with everything.
Yeah, because it's hard to attune through so attunement really comes through that ventrovagal activity, right? That's the calming. That's the I'm safe. That's the experience of safety and calm. And ironically, not so ironically, they are attached to our heart, our throat, our third eye. You know, they are attached to our upper chakras that I call them the evolving chakras, right? When we are able to feel a sense of calm in our central nervous system, in our system, we are then able to attune to more, I call it, you know, the more etheric energies, the softer energies, the intuitive extension of us. However we do that, if it's through energy work, if it's through, you know, spiritualism, if it's whatever the softer, more attuned energies are, if we're thrumming in our central nervous system in our sympathetic nervous system, it's hard to get the readings, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Well, again, I want to tell everybody the name of your book. And now, is your book out right now, or is it dropping next month? I'm trying to look at your date here.
It's dropping next month. I think it is April 8th. Is it the 8th? It's coming out next month. It's coming out in England the following month.
Great.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so again, the name of it is...
It's next month.
Okay.
It's Chakras in the Vagus Nerve.
Tap into the healing combination of subtle energy and your nervous system. So this is a great book, and it's a very helpful kind of a handbook. As you look at what's possible, you begin to understand the connections here that we've been talking about tonight with you, CJ. And it's so wonderful that you were able to come on the show and share all of this great information with us. We so appreciate it. And we want to have you back for your next book. I'm sure you're going to be doing another one.
Llewelyn doesn't know if it's going to get hit here with a proposal here shortly. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm thrilled that you are understanding the concepts and the importance of healing from trauma as a spiritual process. Really excited about that.
Well, thank you for sharing it, because, again, when in talking with you, PK and I now have a whole new understanding of all of this and some possible therapies that can address it for so many of our audience that have written to us and reached out to us about this very issue. I mean, I can't tell you how many people in our audience have said, you know, I've done all the manifestation exercises right, I've followed them to the T, I've done all the instructional work, and it's still not happening. Why is that? And I think this is the biggest missing piece right here.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So we'd like to see our audience be successful and not get so frustrated, and that's why we're thrilled that you've been able to be here tonight and share your new book and all of these good thoughts, really good thoughts with us tonight.
I appreciate it. And, I think it's important for them to know that it's not a personal failing. None of this is a personal failing. It's just us being human trying to navigate our world.
Right.
Good point. Very good point.
Excellent. Yep, we're doing our best out here.
Right? That's all we can do. It's hard being human. It
is no easy thing. Yeah. We think it's easy before we get here, and then we get here, and it's not easy. But anyway.
So we're like, what did we do?
What did we do?
No
exactly.
do-overs.
Why did I decide on this? Yes, I know what you mean.
I think this is a good idea.
Yeah, seemed like it at the time. But anyways, CJ, thank you so much. Again, the name of the book is Chakras and the Vagus Nerve, and you will be able to get that in April, right? In April online with Amazon and possibly also in your local bookstores. So anyways, thanks again, and we will be back next week, everybody, with another great show. I think we're going to be talking about God and UFOs, PK. Does that sound right?
That's right.
All right.
We will
be. Got two big topics next week. Well, until then, everybody, we will see you on the Blue Highway. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural.